The wine glass shattered against the marble floor of our kitchen, and I knew my marriage was over. Not because Lisa threw it. Hell, she'd thrown plenty of things at me over the years. No, it was the look in her eyes when she realized I'd been standing there for the past 5 minutes, listening to her phone conversation with my best friend Alan. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'll leave him with nothing, Alan. Trust me, after 15 years of marriage to that worthless lawyer, I know exactly where he keeps everything hidden. My name is Ryan Carter, and I'm a divorce attorney. Ironic, isn't it? I've spent the last decade helping other people navigate the wreckage of their broken marriages, and I never saw my own wife plotting to destroy me from the inside out. Lisa stood there in her designer yoga pants and that smug expression she wore whenever she thought she was smarter than everyone else in the room. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless, even though it was barely 8 in the morning. She looked like the kind of woman who belonged in our affluent Dallas suburb, polished, expensive, and completely hollow underneath. "Ryan," she said, ending the call and slipping her phone into her purse. "I didn't hear you come downstairs." "Clearly." I stepped around the broken glass, noting how she didn't even apologize or move to clean it up. That was Lisa. She made messes and expected other people to handle the cleanup. "Interesting conversation you were having with Alan." Her laugh was like fingernails on a chalkboard. "Oh, that? We were just discussing his divorce settlement. You know how messy these things can get." I knew she was lying. Alan's divorce had been finalized 6 months ago, and more importantly, I'd been the one handling it. But I also knew something Lisa didn't. I was very, very good at playing the long game. In my line of work, patience wasn't just a virtue, it was a weapon. "Right," I said, pouring myself a cup of coffee. "Well, I should get to the office. Big day ahead?" Lisa's smile faltered slightly. She'd expected an argument, maybe even hoped for one. But I'd learned long ago that the best way to handle Lisa was to give her exactly what she wasn't expecting. As I drove to my law firm downtown, my mind was already working through the possibilities. 15 years of marriage had taught me everything I needed to know about Lisa's weaknesses, her patterns, and most importantly, her arrogance. She thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. She had no idea I'd been playing chess since law school. My office was on the 32nd floor of a gleaming tower in downtown Dallas, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a spectacular view of the city. I'd worked my ass off to get here, starting from nothing and building a reputation as one of the best divorce attorneys in Texas. Lisa liked to take credit for my success, claiming her support had made it all possible. The truth was, Lisa had been nothing but extra weight for years. While I was working 60-hour weeks to build our life, she was spending my money on spa treatments, shopping sprees, and apparently planning my destruction with my best friend. Derek Martinez, my law partner, knocked on my office door around 10. Derek was everything Alan wasn't: loyal, honest, and smart enough to see through people's bullshit. We'd been partners for 5 years, and he was probably the only person I trusted completely. "You look like hell," Derek said, settling into the chair across from my desk. "Everything okay at home?" I considered telling him everything right then, but something held me back. Maybe it was pride. Or maybe it was the lawyer in me that knew you never revealed your strategy until you were ready to win the case. "Just tired," I said. "Lisa's been planning some charity event, and you know how she gets when she's in full social butterfly mode." Derek raised an eyebrow. He'd been to enough dinner parties at our house to know exactly how Lisa got when she was the center of attention. The woman does love her spotlight. That was Derek's polite way of saying my wife was a narcissistic attention whore, and he wasn't wrong. Lisa lived for the admiration of others, especially other women who envied her lifestyle. She'd built her entire identity around being Mrs. Ryan Carter, the successful lawyer's wife with the perfect house, perfect clothes, and perfect life. Too bad none of it was actually perfect. My phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. "Having lunch with Melissa today. Don't wait up for dinner. Book club tonight." Melissa was Lisa's best friend and biggest enabler, a bitter divorcee who seemed to take pleasure in encouraging other women to destroy their marriages. As for book club, I was pretty sure the only thing Lisa was reading was Alan's text messages. I spent the rest of the morning reviewing case files, but my mind kept drifting back to that phone conversation. The casual cruelty in Lisa's voice when she called me worthless. The confidence with which she'd discussed taking everything I'd worked for. The way she'd laughed, like my destruction was some kind of joke between her and Alan. Alan Becker had been my friend since college. We'd been roommates, best man at each other's weddings, godfathers to each other's kids. He was a real estate agent who'd done well for himself, though not nearly as well as he liked people to think. Alan was all flash and no substance. Expensive suits, fancy car, and a personality that could charm the paint off a wall. He was also exactly the kind of man Lisa would find irresistible. Around noon, I made a decision that would change everything. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I'd kept in my contacts for years, but never thought I'd need to use. Marcus Investigations, a gravelly voice answered. Marcus, this is Ryan Carter. I need to hire you for a surveillance job. Marcus Thompson was a private investigator I'd worked with on several divorce cases. He was discreet, thorough, and had a talent for uncovering secrets that people thought they'd buried forever. If Lisa and Alan were having an affair, Marcus would find the proof. What kind of surveillance are we talking about? Marcus asked. My wife. I think she's cheating, and I need evidence before I make any moves. There was a pause. You sure about this, Ryan? Sometimes it's better not to know. I'm sure, I said. And Marcus? I want everything. Photos, recordings, financial records, the works. Whatever this costs, it'll be worth it. After I hung up, I sat back in my chair and looked out at the Dallas skyline. Somewhere out there, Lisa was probably having lunch with Melissa, laughing about how clueless her husband was. Somewhere else, Alan was probably planning his next move in whatever game he thought he was playing. They had no idea what was coming. I spent the afternoon doing what I did best, thinking like a lawyer. If Lisa wanted to play dirty, I'd play dirtier. If she wanted to take everything I'd worked for, I'd make sure she ended up with nothing. And if Alan thought he could betray 15 years of friendship for a chance to sleep with my wife, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. The first rule of divorce law is simple. Whoever controls the narrative controls the outcome. Lisa thought she was writing the story of our marriage's end, but she was wrong. I was about to become the author of her destruction. 3 days later, Marcus called with his first report. I was in my office, reviewing a prenuptial agreement for a client, when his name appeared on my phone screen. My heart rate spiked, even though I'd been expecting this call. Ryan, we need to meet, Marcus said without preamble. I've got photos. We arranged to meet at a small cafe downtown, the kind of place where lawyers and investigators could have quiet conversations without being overheard. Marcus was already waiting when I arrived, a manila envelope on the table in front of him. Marcus Thompson looked exactly like what you'd expect from a private investigator. Mid-50s, weathered face, eyes that had seen too much. He'd been a Dallas police detective for 20 years before going private, and he had the kind of connections that made him very good at his job. Before I show you these, Marcus said, I want you to know that I'm sorry. This isn't the kind of news any man wants to hear. I nodded, trying to prepare myself for whatever was in that envelope. Just show me. The first photo was taken at a restaurant I didn't recognize. Lisa and Alan were sitting across from each other at an intimate table, their hands intertwined. Lisa was wearing a dress I'd never seen before, something low-cut and expensive that she definitely hadn't bought with our joint credit card. The second photo showed them kissing in the parking lot of the same restaurant. The third photo was taken through the window of Alan's condo. Lisa was clearly visible, and she clearly wasn't wearing very much. How long? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. Based on what I've observed, at least 3 months, Marcus said. Probably longer. They've got a routine, lunch dates twice a week, evening meetings at his place when you're working late. They're not being particularly careful about it. I flipped through the rest of the photos, each one a knife twist in my gut. Not because I was heartbroken. Honestly, I'd stopped loving Lisa years ago, but because of the sheer arrogance of it all. They were flaunting their affair, confident that I was too stupid or too busy to notice. There's more, Marcus said. I've been monitoring their communications. They're planning something. He handed me a transcript of text messages between Lisa and Alan. Reading them was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. Lisa, he suspects something. We need to move faster. Alan, don't worry, baby. Once you file for divorce, you'll get half of everything. Maybe more if we play this right. Lisa, half isn't enough. I want it all. The house, the business, everything. He owes me that much for wasting 15 years of my life. Alan, what about the kids? Lisa, what about them? They'll be better off with me. Ryan's never home anyway. I had to stop reading. My hands were shaking with rage, and I was afraid I might do something stupid if I kept going. There's something else, Marcus said quietly. I did some digging into Alan's finances. He's not as successful as he pretends to be. His real estate business is struggling, and he's got some serious debts. I think he sees your wife as his ticket to financial security. That made sense. Alan had always been envious of my success, even though he tried to hide it behind jokes and friendly competition. He'd married young and divorced badly, losing half his assets to his ex-wife. Lisa represented everything he wanted: money, status, and a way to stick it to the friend who'd always done better than him. "What do you want me to do next?" Marcus asked. I thought about it for a moment. The smart thing would be to take these photos to my lawyer and file for divorce immediately, cut my losses, protect my assets, and move on with my life. But the more I thought about Lisa's text messages, the casual cruelty, the assumption that I was too weak to fight back, the angrier I got. "Keep watching them," I said. "I want to know everything they're planning. And Marcus, start looking into their finances. All of them. Lisa's spending, Alan's debts, everything. If they want to play games, I want to know all the rules." That night, I went home and acted like nothing had changed. Lisa was in the kitchen, preparing what she called dinner, but was really just a salad and some leftover takeout. She was wearing yoga pants and a tank top, looking perfectly domestic and innocent. "How was your day?" she asked, not looking up from her phone. "Busy," I said. "How was book club?" "Oh, we're reading some romance novel. Very steamy." She laughed at her own joke, and I wondered if she was thinking about Alan. Our kids, Emma and Jake, were upstairs doing homework. Emma was 12, Jake was 9, and they were the only good things to come out of my marriage to Lisa. The thought of them being caught in the middle of this mess made my chest tight with anger. "I was thinking," Lisa said, still scrolling through her phone, "maybe we should take a family vacation this summer, somewhere expensive. We can afford it, right?" The audacity was breathtaking. She was planning to divorce me and take everything I owned, but she still wanted to spend my money on a vacation first. "Sure," I said. "Where were you thinking?" "Europe, maybe, or that resort in Hawaii you're always talking about." I wasn't always talking about any resort in Hawaii, but I didn't correct her. "Sounds great. We should start planning." Lisa looked up from her phone, surprised by my enthusiasm. She'd expected me to complain about the cost or the time away from work. Instead, I was agreeing with her, which clearly wasn't part of her script. "Really? You're not going to argue about taking time off?" "Life's too short," I said. "We should enjoy it while we can." Something flickered in her eyes. Guilt, maybe, or suspicion. But then her phone buzzed with a text, and her attention was immediately elsewhere. I went upstairs to say goodnight to the kids, trying to act normal even though my world was falling apart. Emma was reading in bed, her dark hair falling across her face in a way that reminded me of myself at that age. "Dad?" she said as I tucked her in. "Are you and Mom okay?" Kids always know more than adults think they do. "What makes you ask that?" "You guys don't talk much anymore, and Mom's been on her phone a lot." I kissed her forehead, breathing in the scent of her shampoo. "Everything's fine, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups just get busy with work and stuff." "Okay," she said, but she didn't look convinced. Jake was already asleep, his room a disaster zone of toys and clothes. I cleaned up a little, thinking about how much I was going to miss these quiet moments if Lisa got custody. The thought of seeing my kids only on weekends made me feel sick. Back in my bedroom, Lisa was already in bed, her back turned to me. We hadn't had sex in months, not since I'd started noticing the distance between us. Now I knew why. She was getting her needs met elsewhere. I lay awake for hours that night, staring at the ceiling and planning my next move. Lisa thought she was so clever, so much smarter than her boring lawyer husband. She had no idea that I'd built my career on being underestimated by people who thought they could outsmart me. She was about to learn the difference between being clever and being smart. 2 weeks into Marcus's surveillance operation, I had enough evidence to bury Lisa and Alan in any divorce court in Texas. But I wasn't ready to file yet. I was starting to enjoy watching them think they were getting away with something. Lisa had become bolder, staying out later and lying more obviously. She'd started buying new clothes and lingerie, charging everything to our joint credit cards. The irony wasn't lost on me. She was using my money to make herself more attractive for her lover. Alan, meanwhile, had started calling me more often, suggesting we grab drinks or play golf. I think he got some sick thrill out of pretending to be my friend while he was sleeping with my wife, or maybe he was just trying to keep tabs on how much I knew. "Ryan, buddy," Alan's voice boomed through my office phone. "How about we hit the links this weekend? It's been too long." "Sorry, Alan. Lisa's got some charity thing planned, and you know how she gets when I miss her events." "Oh, right, the charity thing." There was something in his voice, amusement maybe. "Well, maybe next weekend." After I hung up, I realized what was funny to him. Lisa's charity event was probably code for another afternoon at his condo. They were both getting off on how clueless they thought I was. That afternoon, Marcus called with an interesting development. "Your wife met with a divorce attorney today," he said. "Cynthia Morrison's office. She was there for 2 hours." Cynthia Morrison was known as the most ruthless divorce attorney in Dallas. the kind of lawyer who specialized in taking wealthy men to the cleaners. She was expensive, vicious, and very good at what she did. If Lisa had hired her, she was serious about this divorce. Did you get any details about what they discussed? Not specifically, but I did some research on Morrison's typical strategy. She goes for the throat, argues that the wife deserves more than half because of emotional damages, lost opportunities, that kind of thing, and she's very good at making the husband look like the bad guy. I had to admire Lisa's choice. If you're going to try to destroy someone, you might as well hire the best. There's something else, Marcus continued. I followed Morrison after your wife left. She went straight to Alan Becker's office. They met for about an hour. That was interesting. Why would Lisa's divorce attorney need to meet with Alan? Unless he was going to be more than just the other man, unless he was going to be a witness in the divorce proceedings. Keep digging, I told Marcus. I want to know everything they're planning. That evening, Lisa was practically glowing when she came home. She'd had her hair done and was wearing a new outfit that probably cost more than most people made in a week. You look nice, I said, and I meant it. Lisa was beautiful, even if that beauty was only skin deep. Thank you, she said, seeming genuinely pleased by the compliment. I had lunch with Melissa, and then we went shopping. I hope you don't mind. I bought a few things. Of course not. You deserve nice things. She looked at me strangely, like she was trying to figure out if I was being sarcastic, but I kept my expression neutral, and eventually she shrugged and went upstairs to change. I was starting to enjoy this game of pretending everything was normal while planning my counterattack. Lisa thought she held all the cards, but she didn't know I was playing with a stacked deck. The next morning, I made some calls of my own. The first was to my accountant. Richard, I need you to do something for me. I want to set up a trust for my kids' education, something substantial. How substantial are we talking about? Let's start with $2 million. And Richard, I want it done quickly and quietly. Setting up the trust would protect a significant portion of my assets from any divorce settlement. It was perfectly legal. I was just being a responsible father, planning for my children's future. The fact that it would also limit what Lisa could claim in a divorce was just a happy coincidence. My second call was to my business partner, Derek. I need to restructure my ownership in the firm, I told him. Nothing dramatic, just some adjustments to how the profits are distributed. Derek was smart enough not to ask too many questions, but I could hear the concern in his voice. Everything okay, Ryan? Everything's fine. I'm just being proactive about some financial planning. By the end of the week, I'd quietly moved or protected nearly 60% of my assets. Lisa would still get a substantial settlement if she divorced me, but it wouldn't be the windfall she was expecting. Meanwhile, Marcus continued his surveillance. The photos kept coming. Lisa and Alan at restaurants, hotels, his condo. They were completely shameless, acting like teenagers who'd discovered sex for the first time. But it was the audio recordings that really got to me. Marcus had managed to bug Alan's car, and the conversations between him and Lisa were enlightening. She's getting suspicious, Lisa's voice crackled through the speakers in Marcus's office. Yesterday she asked me where I got my new dress. Who, Emma? Alan asked. Yeah, kids notice everything. Maybe we should be more careful. Or maybe we should just speed up the timeline. How much longer do you want to keep pretending to be happily married? Not long. Cynthia thinks we should wait another month. Let me document more of his neglect and emotional abuse. Emotional abuse? Alan laughed. Ryan's about as abusive as a golden retriever. That's not the point. Cynthia says if we can paint him as emotionally distant and neglectful, I can argue for a bigger settlement, maybe even full custody. Listening to them plot against me was surreal. They were discussing my life like it was a chess game, moving pieces around to maximize their advantage. Lisa was planning to accuse me of emotional abuse. Me, who'd worked 60-hour weeks for 15 years to give her the lifestyle she demanded. But the part about custody made me freeze. Lisa didn't even like spending time with our kids. She saw them as accessories, props in her perfect suburban life. The idea of her getting full custody just to hurt me was terrifying. There's more, Marcus said, fast-forwarding to another conversation. This one's from yesterday. I can't wait to see his face when you serve him with papers, Alan's voice said. Mr. Hotshot lawyer, taken down by his own wife. He'll never see it coming, Lisa agreed. He's so arrogant, so sure that he's smarter than everyone else. He has no idea what's about to hit him. What about afterward? You sure you want to stay in Dallas? For a while. I want to enjoy watching him crawl. But eventually, maybe we could go somewhere new. Start fresh. I like the sound of that. Maybe somewhere warm. California or Florida. They were already planning their new life together, funded by my money and built on the ruins of my family. The casual cruelty of it was breathtaking. But what really struck me was how wrong they were about me. They thought I was arrogant and clueless, that I'd never see their betrayal coming. They had no idea that I'd been preparing for this moment since the day I heard Lisa's phone conversation with Alan. They wanted to watch me crawl? Fine. Let them think they'd won. They had no idea what was coming next. Lisa filed for divorce on a Tuesday morning in March. I was in my office when the process server arrived, a young woman who looked embarrassed to be delivering such devastating news. "Ryan Carter?" she asked. "That's me." "You're being served with divorce papers. I'm sorry." I thanked her and closed the door, then sat down to read through the documents. Cynthia Morrison had done her homework. Lisa was asking for the house, primary custody of the kids, alimony, and 60% of our assets. The petition painted me as an emotionally absent workaholic who had neglected his family in pursuit of his career. Some of it was even true. I had worked long hours. I had missed some school events and family dinners, but the idea that I'd been emotionally abusive was laughable to anyone who actually knew me. My phone rang almost immediately. Derek's name appeared on the screen. "I just heard," he said. "I'm sorry, man. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said, and surprisingly, I meant it. "Actually, I'm relieved. Now I can stop pretending everything's normal. What do you need from me?" "Nothing right now, but Derek, this is going to get ugly. Lisa's hired Cynthia Morrison." Derek whistled low. "Damn. She's not messing around." "No, she's not. But neither am I." After I hung up, I called Marcus. "It's time to move to the next phase. I want you to start documenting everything. Lisa's spending, her movements, everything. And I want you to start looking into Alan's business practices. But if he's cutting any corners, I want to know about it." "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking it's time to stop playing defense." That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in months. I left work early and went home. Lisa was in the living room, talking on the phone. When she saw me, she quickly ended the call. "Ryan," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "I wasn't expecting you home so early." "I got some interesting paperwork today," I said, tossing the divorce papers onto the coffee table. "Want to talk about it?" For just a moment, her mask slipped, and I saw something that might have been guilt. But then her chin came up, and she was back to being the wronged wife. "I think we both know this has been a long time coming," she said. "We haven't been happy for years." "You're right," I agreed. "We haven't. But I'm curious. When did you decide that Alan Becker was the solution to our problems?" Her face went white. "I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out my phone and showed her one of Marcus's photos, the one of her and Alan kissing in the parking lot. "Really? Because this suggests otherwise." Lisa stared at the photo for a long moment, then looked back at me. To her credit, she didn't try to deny it. "How long have you known?" she asked. "Long enough. The question is, what happens now?" "Now we get divorced," she said, her voice getting stronger. "And we try to do it in a way that doesn't destroy our children." "Funny you should mention the children. I noticed in your petition that you're asking for primary custody. That's interesting, considering how little time you actually spend with them." "I spend plenty of time with Emma and Jake." "Really? Because according to my records, you've been out of the house at least 4 afternoons a week for the past 3 months. Book club, charity work, shopping with Melissa, busy schedule for a devoted mother." Lisa's eyes narrowed. "Are you having me followed?" "I'm protecting my interests, something you should understand, considering you hired Cynthia Morrison." We stared at each other across the living room, the pretense of our marriage finally stripped away. This was who we really were. 2 people who'd stopped loving each other years ago, now preparing for war. "I want you out of the house," Lisa said finally. "Actually, you don't get to make that decision. This is my house too, at least until a judge says otherwise. But don't worry, I'll be staying in the guest room. I wouldn't want to make things awkward." That night, I moved my things into the guest room down the hall from our bedroom. It felt strange, like I was a visitor in my own home. But it also felt liberating. No more pretending, no more walking on eggshells around Lisa's moods. The kids took the news about as well as could be expected. Emma cried, Jake got angry, and both of them asked if it was their fault. I spent an hour reassuring them that sometimes adults just couldn't live together anymore, but that didn't mean we loved them any less. "Are you going to move away?" Emma asked, her eyes red from crying. "Never," I promised her. "No matter what happens, I'll always be your dad, and I'll always be here for you." Over the next few weeks, the house became a battlefield. Lisa and I communicated through lawyers and terse notes left on the kitchen counter. She started bringing Alan around more often, not even trying to hide their relationship now that everything was out in the open. The first time I came home to find Alan sitting at my kitchen table, I had to fight the urge to throw him out physically. Instead, I poured myself a drink and sat down across from him. "Alan," I said pleasantly, "how's business?" "Can't complain," he said, but there was something nervous in his voice. "Real estate's always been good to me." "That's interesting. I heard the market's been tough lately. Lots of agents struggling to make ends meet." Alan's smile faltered slightly. "Well, you know how it is? Ups and downs." "Absolutely. I imagine it's especially tough when you've got overhead like that fancy office downtown. Must be expensive." "Ryan," Lisa interrupted, "is there something you need? Alan and I were having a private conversation." "In my kitchen? How rude of me to interrupt." I stood up, finishing my drink. "Don't let me keep you. I'm sure you have a lot to discuss." As I walked upstairs, I heard Alan ask Lisa, "What was that about?" "He's just trying to intimidate you," Lisa replied. "Ignore him." But I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. Good. Let them wonder what I knew. The truth was, Marcus had been very busy over the past few weeks. Alan's real estate business was indeed struggling. He was behind on his office rent, had several deals fall through, and was facing some serious financial pressure. He'd also been cutting corners on some of his transactions, nothing illegal, but definitely unethical. More importantly, Marcus had discovered that Alan's ex-wife was living in a run-down apartment across town, barely making ends meet while Alan drove around in his expensive BMW. Apparently, he'd hidden assets during their divorce and left her with almost nothing. It painted a picture of a man who was desperate, dishonest, and saw my wife as his ticket to financial security. Lisa thought she was trading up, but she was actually trading down to a man who was even more selfish and manipulative than she was. I was going to enjoy watching her figure that out. The charity gala Lisa had been planning for months was scheduled for the first Saturday in May. It was supposed to be the social event of the season, 200 of Dallas's most prominent citizens gathering to raise money for some cause Lisa pretended to care about. She'd been working on it for months, back when she thought she was still fooling me about her affair. Now it had become something else entirely, a chance for her to show our social circle that she was thriving despite our divorce, that she was the victim of a cold, neglectful husband. I decided to attend. "You're not serious," Derek said when I told him my plan. "Why would you want to torture yourself like that?" "Because Lisa's expecting me to hide at home, licking my wounds. She wants everyone to see how devastated I am by her betrayal. I'm not going to give her that satisfaction." "What are you really up to, Ryan?" I smiled. "I'm going to give everyone a show they'll never forget." The gala was held at the Fairmont Hotel, in a ballroom that Lisa had decorated with thousands of dollars worth of flowers and lighting. She looked stunning in a black dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Alan was there too, playing the role of the supportive friend helping Lisa through her difficult divorce. I arrived fashionably late, wearing my best tuxedo and carrying myself like a man without a care in the world. The reaction was immediate. Conversation stopped, heads turned, and I could feel the weight of 200 pairs of eyes on me. "Ryan," Melissa appeared at my elbow, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "I'm so surprised to see you here. How are you holding up?" "Never better," I said, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. "Lisa's done such a beautiful job with this event. I wouldn't miss it for the world." Melissa looked confused. This wasn't the broken, humiliated man she'd been expecting to see. I made my way through the crowd, stopping to chat with friends and colleagues. Everyone wanted to know how I was doing, whether I was okay, if there was anything they could do to help. I thanked them all graciously and assured them that I was fine. "Divorce can be difficult," I told Judge Harrison, who'd been on the bench for 20 years and had seen plenty of messy splits. "But sometimes it's the best thing for everyone involved. Lisa deserves to be happy, and so do I." The judge looked impressed by my maturity. "That's a very healthy attitude, Ryan. Your children are lucky to have a father who can put their needs first." Across the room, I could see Lisa watching me, her face a mask of confusion and growing anger. This wasn't going according to her script. I was supposed to be the bitter ex-husband, not the gracious gentleman who wished her well. Alan approached me at the bar, clearly having been sent by Lisa to figure out what I was up to. "Ryan, good to see you, buddy. I wasn't sure you'd come tonight." "Wouldn't miss it. Lisa's worked so hard on this event. Besides, it's for a good cause, right?" "Right. Listen, I hope there are no hard feelings between us. I mean, about Lisa and everything." I looked at him for a long moment, letting the silence stretch uncomfortably. Alan was sweating slightly, despite the air conditioning. "Alan," I said finally, "you're exactly the kind of man Lisa deserves. I hope you'll be very happy together." He blinked, trying to process whether I'd just insulted him, complimented him, or both. "Thanks, I think. How's business, by the way? I heard the real estate market's been challenging lately. It's fine, he said quickly. Great, actually. Couldn't be better. I'm glad to hear it. Lisa's going to need financial security, especially with the kids to think about. It's expensive, raising children. School, clothes, activities. It all adds up fast. Alan's face had gone pale. I don't think he'd really thought about the financial reality of taking on a woman with 2 kids and expensive tastes. Well, he said, backing away, I should get back to Lisa. She's probably wondering where I am. Of course. Give her my best. I watched him hurry back to Lisa, saw them have a quick, intense conversation. Lisa's eyes found mine across the room, and for the first time since this whole thing started, I saw something that might have been fear. The evening's program included a silent auction, dinner, and speeches from various local dignitaries. Lisa was scheduled to give the closing remarks, thanking everyone for their generosity and support. She took the stage looking confident and beautiful, every inch the successful socialite. But I could see the tension in her shoulders, the slight tremor in her hands as she adjusted the microphone. Thank you all for being here tonight, she began. Your support means more to me than you know, especially during this challenging time in my life. A murmur of sympathy went through the crowd. Lisa was playing the victim card, positioning herself as the brave woman overcoming adversity. As many of you know, I'm going through a divorce right now. It's been difficult, but I'm grateful for the support of my friends and family. And I'm especially grateful for the chance to focus on something positive, something that can make a real difference in our community. She went on for several more minutes, skillfully weaving her personal story into the charity's mission. It was a masterful performance, designed to generate both donations and sympathy. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. People were dabbing their eyes, clearly moved by her courage and grace under pressure. Then I stood up. If I could just say a few words, I called out, my voice carrying clearly through the ballroom. Lisa's face went white. This wasn't part of the program, and she had no way to stop me without causing a scene. I just want to thank my wife for organizing such a wonderful event, I said, walking toward the stage. Lisa has always been passionate about helping others, and tonight is a perfect example of her generous spirit. The crowd applauded politely, unsure where this was going. I also want to thank all of you for your support during this difficult time. Divorce is never easy, but Lisa and I are committed to handling this with dignity and respect, especially for the sake of our children. More applause, warmer this time. I was hitting all the right notes. That's why I'm so pleased to announce that despite our personal differences, Lisa and I have agreed to work together on something very important. We're establishing a scholarship fund for underprivileged children in Dallas, funded by the proceeds from tonight's auction. This was news to Lisa, and her shock was visible to everyone in the room, but she couldn't contradict me without looking petty and selfish. The Carter Family Scholarship will provide educational opportunities for kids who might not otherwise have them, because no matter what happens between Lisa and me, we both believe that children deserve every chance to succeed. The applause was deafening now. People were on their feet, moved by what they saw as an act of extraordinary generosity and maturity. I looked up at Lisa, who was trapped on the stage, forced to smile and nod, as if this had been her idea all along. Thank you all again for your support, I concluded. And thank you, Lisa, for reminding me what's really important. As I walked back to my table, I could see the impact of my little speech. People were looking at me with new respect, and at Lisa with something that might have been pity. She'd tried to position herself as the victim, but I just repositioned myself as the magnanimous ex-husband who was putting his children first. The scholarship fund was real. I'd set it up that morning, funded with money from my trust. It was a tax write-off, a good deed, and a strategic move all rolled into one. But more importantly, it had just shifted the narrative of our divorce. Lisa was no longer the brave victim of a cold, neglectful husband. She was the woman who cheated on a generous, family-focused man who was still trying to do right by their children. As the evening wound down, I made my way toward the exit. Lisa intercepted me near the door, her face tight with barely controlled fury. "What the hell was that?" she hissed. "That was me supporting your charity work," I said innocently. "Isn't that what you wanted?" "You blindsided me up there. You made me look like... Like what? Like a woman whose husband still cares about their children's future? I thought you'd be pleased." "Don't play games with me, Ryan. I know what you're doing." "I'm doing exactly what I said. Putting our children first. Isn't that what's best for everyone?" Lisa stared at me, and I could see her trying to figure out how to respond. Anything she said would make her look petty and selfish, and she knew it. "This isn't over," she said finally. "No," I agreed. "It's not." As I walked to my car, I felt better than I had in months. The first shot had been fired. Lisa and Alan thought they were playing chess, but they were actually playing checkers against a grandmaster. They wanted to watch me crawl. They were about to learn what it felt like themselves. 3 months later, Lisa's perfect plan was falling apart, and she knew it. The scholarship announcement had been just the beginning. Over the following weeks, I'd systematically dismantled the narrative she'd tried to build about our marriage. Every time she tried to paint me as the villain, I responded with grace and generosity. When she complained to friends about my emotional neglect, I sent flowers to her office with a note thanking her for 15 wonderful years. When she tried to restrict my time with the kids, I volunteered to coach Jake's Little League team and started taking Emma to father-daughter dinners every week. Most importantly, I'd started talking to people, really talking. Not gossiping or bad-mouthing Lisa, but having honest conversations about our marriage and what had gone wrong. I take full responsibility for my part in this, I told Sarah Henderson, one of Lisa's closest friends, over coffee. I got so focused on providing for my family that I forgot to actually be present with them. Lisa deserves better than that. Sarah looked uncomfortable. She'd clearly expected me to be bitter and angry, not reflective and accountable. I just hope she's happy, I continued. And I hope Alan treats her the way she deserves to be treated. About Alan, Sarah said carefully. Are you sure he's right for her? I mean, some of us have concerns. What kind of concerns? Well, his reputation isn't great. There are rumors about how he treated his ex-wife and some questionable business practices. I looked surprised. Really? I had no idea. I mean, I knew he was going through some financial difficulties, but I assumed that was just temporary. Financial difficulties? Oh, maybe I shouldn't have said anything. It's just that he asked me for some legal advice about his debts. I told him I couldn't represent him because of the conflict of interest, but I referred him to another attorney. This was completely true. Alan had indeed asked me for legal advice back before I knew about the affair. He was in deeper financial trouble than even I had realized. Sarah left our coffee date with a very different impression of the situation. Within days, the story had spread through Lisa's social circle. Ryan was being mature and generous about the divorce, while Alan might not be the catch Lisa thought he was. Meanwhile, Marcus had been busy gathering more evidence. Alan's financial situation was even worse than we'd initially discovered. He was 3 months behind on his office rent, had defaulted on 2 car payments, and was facing a lawsuit from a former client who claimed he'd misrepresented a property. More damaging were the details about his previous marriage. Alan's ex-wife, Janet, had been willing to talk to Marcus about her experience. The picture she painted was of a man who was charming and attentive while courting, but selfish and manipulative once he had what he wanted. He promised me the world, Janet told Marcus. Said we'd travel, buy a bigger house, start a family. But once we were married, it was all about him. His career, his needs, his image. And when I finally got fed up and asked for a divorce, he hid assets and left me with almost nothing. The recording of that conversation was particularly interesting, but I wasn't ready to use it yet. I was saving it for the right moment. That moment came in July, at Emma's 12th birthday party. Lisa had wanted to have the party at our house, despite the awkwardness of our living situation. I'd agreed because I wanted Emma to have a normal celebration surrounded by her friends and family. The party was in full swing when Alan arrived, carrying an expensive-looking gift and acting like he belonged there. Several of the other parents looked uncomfortable. Word about the affair had gotten around, and not everyone approved of Lisa's choices. I was manning the grill, flipping burgers and hot dogs, when Alan approached me. "Nice party," he said, helping himself to a beer from the cooler. "Emma deserves the best," I replied. "She's been through a lot lately." "Kids are resilient. She'll be fine." Something in his casual dismissal of my daughter's feelings triggered a flash of anger, but I kept my voice level. "I hope so. Being 12 is hard enough without having to deal with your parents' divorce." "Look, Ryan, I know this is awkward, but we're all adults here. We need to figure out how to make this work." "You're right, we do." I flipped a burger, letting the silence stretch. "How are things going with your business, by the way? Last time we talked, you seemed stressed about some financial issues." Alan's jaw tightened. "Everything's fine. I told you, business is great." "I'm glad to hear it. Lisa mentioned you might be moving in together soon. That's a big step." "We're discussing it." "Good for you. Of course, with 2 kids and Lisa's lifestyle, expenses can add up quickly. Emma alone costs us about $1,500 a month. School, activities, clothes, and Jake's not far behind." I could see Alan doing the math in his head, and he didn't like the total. "I'm sure we'll manage," he said stiffly. "Of course you will. Lisa's very good at managing money." This was a complete lie. Lisa had never balanced a checkbook in her life, but Alan didn't know that. The conversation was interrupted by Emma running over to show me something one of her friends had given her. I excused myself and spent the next hour focused entirely on my daughter, making sure her party was perfect. But I noticed Alan watching me, and I could see the wheels turning in his head. For the first time, he was really thinking about what he was signing up for, a high-maintenance woman with 2 kids and expensive tastes, while his own financial situation was falling apart. The party was winding down when Lisa pulled me aside. "We need to talk," she said, her voice tense. "What about?" "About this act you've been putting on. The perfect father, the understanding ex-husband. I know what you're doing. I'm trying to make the best of a difficult situation, for the kids' sake." "Bullshit. You're trying to make me look bad." "Lisa, I haven't said a negative word about you to anyone. All I've done is take responsibility for my mistakes and try to be a good father." "That's exactly what I'm talking about. You're making yourself look like the victim here." "I'm not the victim. Neither are you. We're 2 people who made a marriage that didn't work. The only victims here are Emma and Jake." Lisa stared at me, frustration radiating from every line of her body. She knew I was outmaneuvering her, but she couldn't figure out how to stop it without looking petty and vindictive. "I want you out of the house," she said finally. "The judge hasn't ruled on that yet. Until he does, I have every right to be here." "Fine, but I want you to know that Alan and I are serious. We're planning a future together. I hope it works out for you. I really do." As the last guests left, I helped clean up while Lisa and Alan huddled in the corner, having what looked like an intense conversation. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but Alan's body language suggested he wasn't happy. That night, after the kids were in bed, I got a call from Marcus. "You need to hear this," he said. "I got it off the bug in Alan's car about an hour ago." He played me a recording of Alan and Lisa's conversation as they drove away from the party. "I can't do this anymore," Alan's voice said. "This whole situation is fucked up." "What are you talking about?" Lisa sounded panicked. "I'm talking about your ex-husband. He's playing some kind of game, and I don't like being a pawn." "Ryan's not playing any game. He's just trying to look good for the divorce." "Really? Then why does everyone we meet seem to know about my financial problems? Why do I keep running into people who've heard I'm not good enough for you?" "That's ridiculous." "Is it? Because I'm starting to think your husband isn't as clueless as we thought. I think he's been playing us from the beginning." There was a long pause before Lisa spoke again. "Even if that's true, it doesn't change anything. I still want to be with you." "Do you? Or do you just want to hurt Ryan?" "Both," Lisa admitted. "Is that so wrong?" "Yeah, Lisa, it is. Because I'm the one who's going to end up paying for your revenge." The recording ended there, but it was enough. Alan was getting cold feet, and Lisa was getting desperate. The cracks in their relationship were starting to show, and I hadn't even played my best cards yet. I was saving those for the finale. The end came on a rainy Thursday evening in September, exactly 6 months after Lisa had filed for divorce. I was at home, helping Jake with his math homework, when my phone rang. It was Marcus, and his voice was tight with excitement. "You need to get down here right now," he said. "Alan's office. Trust me, you don't want to miss this." I called Derek to come stay with the kids, then drove downtown through the storm. Marcus was waiting in the parking garage across from Alan's building, camera equipment ready. "What's happening?" I asked. "Alan's having a very bad day," Marcus said. "His landlord showed up this morning with an eviction notice. He's 3 months behind on rent. Then his ex-wife arrived with a lawyer and some very interesting documents about hidden assets." Through his telephoto lens, I could see into Alan's office. He was pacing frantically, talking on his phone, gesturing wildly. Papers were scattered everywhere, and he looked like a man whose world was falling apart. "It gets better," Marcus continued. "Lisa showed up about an hour ago. They've been screaming at each other ever since." As if on cue, the office door flew open and Lisa stormed out. Even from across the street, I could see she was crying. Alan followed her, grabbing her arm and spinning her around. "Get your hands off me," Lisa's voice carried across the street. "You can't just walk away," Alan shouted back. "We had a deal." "The deal's off. I'm not going down with your sinking ship." "You think you can do better? You think Ryan's going to take you back after what you've done?" Lisa slapped him. Hard. The sound echoed off the buildings. Alan stood there for a moment, holding his cheek, then laughed bitterly. "You're pathetic, Lisa. You know that? You threw away a good man for nothing, and now you're going to end up with nothing." Lisa got in her car and drove away, tires squealing on the wet pavement. Alan stood in the rain for a long moment, then went back inside his office. "How did you arrange all this?" I asked Marcus. "I didn't arrange anything. I just made some phone calls. Told Alan's ex-wife where to find some hidden bank accounts. Mentioned to his landlord that he might want to check on those rent payments. Sometimes the dominoes fall all by themselves. We sat in the car for another hour, watching Alan's office. Around 9 o'clock, he finally came out, carrying 2 boxes and looking like he'd aged 10 years. His BMW was gone, probably repossessed, and he loaded the boxes into a beat-up Honda that must have been a rental. As he drove away, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and pity. Alan had been my friend once, before greed and envy turned him into something else, but he'd made his choices, and now he was living with the consequences. I drove home to find Lisa waiting in the driveway. She looked terrible, mascara streaked down her face, her hair disheveled, her designer clothes wrinkled and damp from the rain. "We need to talk," she said as I got out of my car. "Okay, let's talk." We went inside, and I poured her a glass of wine. Her hands were shaking as she took it. "Alan's gone," she said. "I'm sorry to hear that." "No, you're not. You planned this whole thing, didn't you?" I sat down across from her, studying her face. "I didn't plan anything, Lisa. I just stopped pretending I didn't know what you were doing." "You destroyed him. You destroyed us." "I didn't destroy anything. I just let people see who Alan really was. The financial problems, the way he treated his ex-wife, the lies he told to impress you, none of that was my doing." Lisa stared at me, and I could see the moment when she finally understood. "You've been playing us from the beginning." "I've been protecting myself and my children. There's a difference. I loved him." "No, you didn't. You loved the idea of him, the excitement, the rebellion, the fantasy of a different life. But you never really knew him." "And you? Did you ever really know me?" I considered the question. "I knew who you used to be, or who I thought you used to be. But somewhere along the way, you became someone else, someone who could lie to her husband for months, someone who could use her children as pawns in a divorce, someone who could throw away 15 years of marriage for a man she'd known for 6 months. Lisa was crying again, but quietly now. "What happens now?" "Now we get divorced. You'll get a fair settlement. Not what you were hoping for, but fair. I'll have joint custody of the kids. And we'll both try to build new lives. I have nowhere to go. No job, no money of my own. You'll figure it out. You're smart, Lisa. Smarter than you've been acting lately." She finished her wine and stood up. "I hate you for this." "I know. But someday, when you're honest with yourself, you'll realize that I saved you from making an even bigger mistake." Lisa walked toward the door, then stopped. "The kids are going to ask about Alan. Tell them the truth, that sometimes adults make bad choices and there are consequences." After she left, I poured myself a drink and sat in my living room, thinking about the past 6 months. I'd won, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like the end of something that had died a long time ago. The divorce was finalized 2 months later. Lisa got the house. I didn't fight her on it, but I got joint custody and kept most of my assets. The scholarship fund I'd established had grown to over $100,000, and we'd already awarded our first grants to 3 deserving kids. Alan left Dallas and never came back. I heard through mutual friends that he'd moved to Phoenix and was working as a junior agent at a small real estate firm. His ex-wife got a settlement that allowed her to move into a decent apartment and start over. Lisa eventually got a job at an event planning company and rented a small house near the kids' school. We were polite to each other at school functions and soccer games, but we were strangers now. The people we'd been when we fell in love were gone, replaced by 2 adults who'd learned hard lessons about trust and betrayal. Emma and Jake adjusted better than I'd expected. Kids are resilient, and they could see that both their parents were happier apart than they'd been together. I made sure to be present for everything: homework, sports, school plays, bedtime stories, all the things I'd missed while I was building my career. 6 months after the divorce was final, I was at Jake's baseball game when I saw Lisa across the field. She was sitting alone, watching our son play, and for a moment she looked like the woman I'd married 20 years ago. Young, hopeful, beautiful. Our eyes met across the diamond, and she gave me a small smile. Not friendly exactly, but not hostile either. It was the smile of someone who'd learned to accept the choices she'd made. After the game, as the kids ran ahead to the car, Lisa approached me. "Ryan," she said, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you think we ever had a chance? If we'd done things differently, could we have made it work?" I thought about it for a long moment. Maybe, if we'd been different people, made different choices, but we weren't, and we didn't. "Do you hate me?" "No, Lisa, I don't hate you. I don't love you anymore, but I don't hate you either. You're the mother of my children, and you always will be." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry. For all of it." "I know. Me too." As I watched her walk away, I realized that this was what closure looked like. Not dramatic or satisfying, just two people acknowledging the end of something that had once been important. That night, I tucked Emma and Jake into their beds at my new apartment. It was smaller than the house we'd all lived in together, but it was ours. The walls were covered with their artwork and school photos, and the refrigerator was full of their favorite foods. "Dad," Emma said as I kissed her goodnight, "are you happy now?" "Yeah, sweetheart, I am. Are you?" "Most of the time. I miss when we were all together, but I like that you and Mom don't fight anymore." "We're all going to be okay," I told her. "Different than before, but okay." After the kids were asleep, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, looking out at the Dallas skyline. My phone buzzed with a text from Derek. "Drinks tomorrow? I want to hear about your date with that teacher." I smiled. Yes, I was dating again. Sarah was a third-grade teacher, divorced with a son Jake's age. She was kind, funny, and completely different from Lisa. We were taking things slow, but I was optimistic about the future. My phone buzzed again. This time it was from Marcus. "Saw the news about Alan. Thought you'd want to know." I opened the link he'd sent. It was a small item in the Phoenix Business Journal about a real estate agent who'd been arrested for fraud. Alan's mugshot stared back at me from the screen, looking older and defeated. I closed the phone without reading the details. Whatever Alan had done, whatever consequences he was facing, they were his responsibility now. My part in his story was over. Lisa had wanted to watch me crawl, but in the end, she was the one who'd ended up on her knees. Alan had thought he could use my wife to solve his problems, but he'd only made them worse. They'd both underestimated the quiet lawyer who worked too much and talked too little. They'd learned the hard way that still waters run deep, and that revenge is a dish best served with perfect timing and absolute precision. I finished my wine and went inside to check on my children one more time. Tomorrow was Saturday, and we were going to the zoo. Just the three of us, building new memories to replace the old ones. As I turned off the lights, I thought about Lisa's question. Did I hate her? No, but I didn't forgive her either. Some things couldn't be forgiven, only accepted and moved past. She'd wanted to destroy me, to take everything I'd worked for and leave me with nothing. Instead, she'd lost everything herself. Her marriage, her lover, her social standing, her sense of self. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting people destroy themselves while you watch from a safe distance. Sometimes the best revenge is living well.